So in case you didn't know, this is the new 911 GT3 RS. This is the latest 911 GT3 Touring. And this is a regular 911 Carrera.
So this standard 911 costs about 85 grand, give or take a few options. This deeply lovely looking GT3 Touring costs about 130 grand. But this monster, the new GT3 RS, well, it costs a little bit more. It costs 180 grand. And it's got 860 kilograms of downforce and ducts and huge tyres, etc. But what does that actually buy you in terms of pure raw performance over those two? Well, buckle up, because we're about to find out.
So to find out just how much more bang for your buck you get from the RS, we've come up with a series of tests. And test one is very simply a 0 to 150 mile an hour drag race.
I don't think there's going to be a massive amount of difference between the RS and the Touring, to be honest, because the Touring is a tiny bit lighter than the RS. And although it's slightly longer geared, it's 14 horsepower down, it's really not going to make that much difference. Let's see what happens.
So with launch control selected in all three, the dampers and diff set to full soft in the RS, and the GT3 Touring driver having perfected the car's auto flat shift technique, here is what happened next.
Okay, 3, 2,
Yes, I got them. This seems a little bit unfair. It feels like turning up to a knife fight with a Kalashnikov. 150, like that.
So the RS wins the drag race, of course it does, but the Touring is still within a second of it to 150, while the Carrera, well, it's a little bit further behind. You'd expect that given the difference in horsepower. Interestingly, the less draggy GT3 Touring actually started to reel the RS back in towards the end of the race. And to show you how, we did some rolling start tests in third and fourth gears as well. Watch the Touring carefully.
3, 2, 1, go.
As you can see, the more slippery but longer geared Touring definitely starts to creep away from the RS as the speeds rise. It's interesting. Anyway, next test, braking. To do this, we simply sat each car at 100 miles an hour, side by side, then hit the brakes at the exact same moment. And
Three, 2, 1, now.
well, there really wasn't a whole lot in it under brakes, to be fair. Yes, the RS stopped a touch faster and in a slightly shorter distance than the others from 100, but to be honest, the gap wasn't as wide as we expected. Maybe with a bit more heat in its optional carbon ceramic brake discs, the RS might have pulled up a bit quicker, or maybe not. Anyway, for the next test, there really should be more of a difference, because grip, both mechanical and aero, are what the GT3 RS is all about. And the test simply compares how much speed each 911 can carry into, through and out of a fourth gear corner, hitting the same entry, the same apex and the same exit points. Right, RS first, let's see.
Doing 111 and I go over the exact piece of tarmac that I know I want to go across. 111.
So the RS clocked 108, 105 and 111 miles an hour. That's 108 on turn-in, 105 at the apex and 111 at the exit. By comparison, the Touring turned in at 99 miles an hour, dropped to 96 at the apex and was back up to 103 at the exit. The Carrera, on the other hand, was a long way off, with speeds of 95, 92 and 98 miles an hour at the exit. Conclusion, all that downforce really does make a difference when push comes to shove. So for our final test, well, it all gets a bit gratuitous here, quite frankly, but I don't know, why not? Basically, the test is how well do they drift through a 60 mile an hour corner with absolutely everything switched off. Not very scientific, but there you go. As you can see, the RS drifts beautifully, but it is quite edgy going sideways because its chassis is so stiff, even with the dampers and diff set to full soft. The aero does absolutely nothing for it at these speeds, so it's all about overcoming the mechanical grip, which is mighty, then just playing with the throttle to keep the rear tyres lit. The Touring does it almost as well, as you can see. The Carrera not quite so well, because it doesn't have the same power to be able to hold a decent drift.
I mean, how can you not fall in love with this car? It's just such a lovely thing. Even to do that in, I could spend the rest of my life driving this car and I would be fulfilled.
So overall, and in tangible terms, you get a bit more straight line performance for the RS for your money. Maybe not just as much extra braking performance as you'd expect, somewhat weirdly, but more pure cornering power than you will ever quite believe. Oh yes, and it goes sideways rather nicely too. So the overall answer is, you get quite a lot for your money in the areas that count, i.e. the ones that make it quick around a circuit, and maybe not just as much as you'd expect in others. Either way, it's one heck of a car, is the new GT3 RS.
I mean, however good you think it is, double it and then double it again. I love it. And yes, it does justify the performance. Oh, go on then. Maybe just one last go in it before they take it back to Germany.